Okay, so we're here to do something that I just fundamentally unprepared for this. I was never expecting to be in the position where I would come to you guys and say, we have to talk about green and how green's a problem color and is too strong. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are living in very, very weird times for a guy like me. If you haven't gotten the memo yet, if you don't know what I'm all about, I'm all about playing massive green decks, like 250 card, here we go, playing with all kinds of crazy nonsense green decks. I love green. I've loved green since the beginning of Magic. There was always a fundamental problem with green for most of Magic's history, and that is that green was Magic's worst color, like hands down. Sure, you could splash a little bit of green into a deck and like, oh, you know what? Green was a great, like, I got your back, brother. I'll help you ramp up kind of color or whatever else. Like, to a degree, it was okay as a backup color, but never as like the main attraction, the main event, right? Green was just kind of like, all right, man, whatever. Now, in more recent times, we've seen white take that position. There's no disputing that white is now the most overlooked and underpowered color in Magic, right? They're trying to fix that. Like, part of this comes down to color identities and what different colors can do. And you can see white's been pushing, it's taken some of its concepts and pushed them harder. And you can see even black getting new parts of the color pie, with black having targeted enchantment removal. That is a new sort of concept. So the color pie shifts in different ways, and colors rise and fall in fortunes and strength, right? That's how it works. So green, slowly but surely, has been pushed and pushed and pushed. And I think part of this might be due to market research, where they look at it and go, wow, green's a great beginner color. People really like green. Let's push green's power level up. And we'd seen in recent times that green had been making more of a showing, but overall, green was mostly a problem when it was hanging out with the evil, disgusting blue cards, okay? Now, blue to me is the least fun color in Magic. Blue is the biggest, like, zero-sum fun style color you can play. That's the way that it's always been. Rail against blue, it's making the game unfun. Well, for the first time in my life, now I'm not happy seeing people play forests. That used to be what I loved the most. If somebody played a first turn forest, I'd be like, maybe we're gonna have a big old greeny boy battle. Because again, I play a 250 card green deck on Arena, right? So it's like, oh, maybe we're just gonna have a big, like, directly green on green fight. That'll be fun, right? And then invariably they would just lay like an island or something and be like, no, I'm leaving. What you're doing is gross. Combining blue with green should be against the law, right? That's usually how it went in terms of my reaction to the beginning of a game. But now, just playing a forest is enough for me to go, oh no, what are we dealing with here? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna do it on the second turn? Are you about to play the biggest problem in Standard on the second turn right now? Because to me, right now, the biggest problem is Lotus Cobra, okay? There's another card that we'll touch on as well that's really got people in a snit right now. But Lotus Cobra is like broken, it's broken nonsense, at least in this current environment, right? Like, the thing about Lotus Cobra is it's not a new design. In fact, Rosewater just put out an article today talking about like the back design concept of the Lotus Cobra. Now, when Lotus Cobra first showed up, it was mythic. It's been downgraded to a rare, so people have an opportunity to get more of them, whatever. That, like, let's be real. When it comes to a format, it doesn't matter whether a card's rare or mythic. That's not really, the only thing that rarity really influences are card prices and draft environments. Because other than that, like, you're just going to get multiple copies of Lotus Cobra, whether it's a mythic rare or it's a rare. It's going to pose the same problem. So rarity isn't the issue. The power level of the Lotus Cobra is. Now, when the Lotus Cobra first showed up in the original, like, Zendikar block, there's a scenario where it was so outclassed that it didn't even matter, really. Sure, it was a good card, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Lotus Cobra was garbage, but it wasn't evident just how busted a card it was going to be, because it was so overshadowed by one of the biggest mistakes in Magic the Gathering history. That's right, I'm talking about Jace the Mind Sculptor. Jace the Mind Sculptor was so insanely busted that he warped the entire format around him. And Lotus Cobra just, it wasn't enough to stand up and be like, I matter in this environment. It's like, you playing Jace? Nope, well, get ready to lose. That is pretty much the environment that we lived in. Like, Jace the Mind Sculptor was so insanely OP that Lotus Cobra didn't really get its due. It got respect, but not as much respect as it would have gotten if it was able to, like, fully flex on the masses, right? So apparently they were thinking about putting Lotus Cobra in the Return to Zendikar set that they did, like Battle for Zendikar, that block. They thought about bringing Lotus Cobra back there, but decided ultimately not to do so because it would be too powerful. Now we come to the current day where they decided they're going to put Lotus Cobra in. Remember, this is a format where if no bans had happened, you would have Once Upon a Time, you'd have Oko, you'd have Lotus Cobra, all this stuff in the same environment with a bunch of other crazy nonsense. It's literally gotten to the point where, like, these busted like a Lotus Cobra basically on the second turn means you're probably going to lose the game on the third turn. Like, there's a good chance the game's over on the third turn. This is like standard we're talking about. The pivotal turn that decides an entire game shouldn't be turn 3. But Lotus Cobra is making up pretty much a guarantee. And the advantage you get from it is so overwhelming that it just allows you, it gives you so much leeway to recover from problems, man. The card is nuts. It's absolutely insane. And that's not the only thing that's causing problems right now with green. Scute Swarm is also causing big problems right now. People are mutating cards onto it and making multiple copies of it. It's spreading out like wildfire. Now, personally, my opinion, and I could be completely wrong about this, like, you could find out months from now and be like, oh, you really feel like that now, idiot? I feel like Lotus Cobra is the bigger problem. I feel like you can find answers to the swarm more readily, because the swarm's purpose is to just make a bunch of little bodies and, like, come at you. Whereas the Lotus Cobra's purpose is literally to just accelerate you to victory faster, right? So if answers show up to the swarm and stick around, whatever, that's fine. But Lotus Cobra is still going to be there to accelerate, right? With the swarm, you can do like a Wrath of God or whatever, wipe out all the swarms, get rid of all that stuff, right? But the Lotus Cobra does its damage right away. And I don't mean damage to the player. I mean damage to, like, game state and tempo by just giving you accelerated mana boosts. Like, hey, check it out, I'm going to put on my Cobra, and I'm going to go get a bunch more lands, and with that mana, I'm going to do all this. And it's like, dude, it's the third turn. And you just spent, like, a crazy amount of mana. You just got to go through, what, like 10 mana or some nutty nonsense like that? Check it out. You like a third, fourth turn Ugin? All this, like, there's just so much craziness around the Cobra. So I feel like the Swarm is a flavor of the week, because there's different things that happen with Magic and Standard. There's certain things where it's like, this is a problem right now, and then there's, this is a problem the entire time it's in the format. And I feel like the Scute Swarm is a problem right now that will most likely have a solution. But I feel like the Lotus Cobra is going to be such a problem that it's probably going to get banned. Now, again, I could be wrong about the Scute Swarm. I completely missed Oko. When Oko came out, I looked at him and went, yeah, he seems okay. But, I mean, obviously, Oko's the most busted nonsense we've seen in forever. As he took over format after format, watching Oko turn like a Black Lotus into an elk was an eye-opening experience, right? So, we have a scenario where Wizards' new design philosophy leads to this, right? Like, they literally have the fire design philosophy where they're just making insanely powerful cards, barely testing them. Like, they thought that people would only use, or at least is what they said, they thought people would only use Oko's abilities on their own cards. Like, they tested Oko so little and so poorly that they didn't realize it was definitely going to need a ban. And so as a result, Oko ends up like being a big part of the story. He's the face of the set. He's a big chase mythic, and they had to bring the hammer down on him as much as they didn't want to because they messed up. It really does feel like the new philosophy is not only like, we need to make more powerful cards. It doesn't matter if we make insanely unbalanced environments. We can just ban the cards later after the set isn't selling as hot, and who cares if we mess up standard? We just want to make cards that interrupt and go into all kinds of other formats as well, so we can ideally sell more product. So it feels like we're finally at the point in Magic where before they treated standard like an important format, and they wanted to make sure that it was balanced, and it was viewed as a vehicle, the main vehicle, to sell new sets. But it feels now like standard is just an excuse to rotate cards. Standard isn't about like having this limited environment to create a more balanced thing. It's just, no, you can only play with the newest cards. We're going to make broken stuff, and we're going to have bans after bans after bans after bans. And this is really bad for the health of the game. You can only put people through the ban ringer so many times before they quit. Everybody has a ban threshold where once you hit that threshold, they go, I'm not spending any more money on your game. There is a limit. Magic is a very fun game, but the company can reach a point where they've gone too far. And people just go, you know what? I'm not giving you any more of my money. I'm not buying this stuff. Like, I'm tired of you running me through this ringer over and over and over. And then they don't always just move over to other formats. They just leave the game. So we have a genuine scenario where Lotus Cobra has been turned loose on a format that it just feels fundamentally unprepared to deal with the ramp that it allows. And it's creating blisteringly fast games, which is not what Standard should be about. Standard should take a little bit longer than the other formats. Standard should essentially, aside from like laborious Commander games and stuff like that, out of your like one-on-one competitive style tournament formats, Standard should be your slowest format. That's how it should work. The older format, the faster it's going to be because there's more powerful cards, right? But Standard is so fast now because they keep making better cards in terms of like ramp cards, creatures, and stuff like that. But what they don't do at the same time is make equally good answers, right? Over time in Magic, the answers to threats have become weaker and the threats have become stronger, which leads to less skillful playing and more luck sack early splamp it on the board style play. So it leads to just, it's a less fun environment. The fact now that when I see somebody lay a forest makes me go, oh God, don't play a second turn Cobra. And then they do, and I just go, oh, you know what, okay, I'm leaving. Here you go, have the win, buddy. I already know where this is going because each Cobra deck plays out the same. I haven't run into anybody who's doing anything interesting or unique with it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, people can play whatever they want to play. And there's a lot of people who just want to win at any cost. And they will gravitate towards the strongest strategy. There's nothing wrong with that. But when Wizards makes it so that the strongest strategy is so overwhelmingly fast and bleak, it basically ruins the fun for people who don't fall into that camp. And that's not everybody. So you lose those players. And then even the players that are hardcore and really want to win and are grindy and will try and get into your pro status and all this stuff, even they start to hate playing against this stuff. And it gets so tedious that even your most focused grindy style players are like, oh no, I don't want to do this anymore. That's not where Magic design should be going. Only having a handful of people designing cards and then barely testing them with the philosophy of, oh, well, if it screws up the environment, we'll just issue a ban. It's not a way to lead to a healthy format and a better game overall. So for me, the Swarm feels like a temporary storm, whereas the Lotus Cobra feels like a permanent problem. That's my opinion on it. I'm interested to hear your thoughts because I am not a hardcore competitive player. And it does make me laugh that I always mention this stuff in videos. I go, I'm not a MetaMaster. I'm not a hardcore competitive player. And someone will come in and go, you don't know anything. You don't know about this? And it's like, dude, I legitimately just said that I'm not aware of that. Anyways, I'm not going to go on and on about it. What I will mention is that I put out an amazing 35-minute lore video on my other channel yesterday. And it's magnificent. If you have not gotten up to speed with what's going on with Karn and Urza and Teferi and Joyra and all those great folk in the lore, you're going to want to come over to my channel, Fantasy Geographic, and check that out because it's absolutely fantastic, right? So, that being said, if you like what I'm doing here, like, comment, subscribe. If you love what I'm doing here, join my Patreon and put a smile on my old man face. Thanks for coming by, everyone. I will see you all tomorrow.